Representative Jamie Thompson put out a call for action on how state-run mental health facilities operate. It comes after a lawsuit alleges a 9-year-old Hawthorne Center patient was assaulted and employees did nothing to stop it. Our Elle Myers joins us now from the state capitol in Lansing with more on what lawmakers want to see. And we do want to warn you, this piece contains footage of children fighting that could be difficult to watch.
One Republican state House member says she's been working for months on getting answers to disturbing allegations of child abuse in state-run mental health facilities for children. But her efforts here in the Capitol haven't gotten a whole lot of traction. Her explanation, the letter listed behind her name.
Yes, it is very frustrating because how do you just let something like this go? How do you allow something like this where somebody could be even more seriously hurt than my son or die?
Jamie Vaughn is the mother of Princeton, who wound up with injuries to his face and mouth after a fight last fall inside of Walter Reuther Psychiatric Hospital in Westland when he was 9 years old.
What happened in there was a fight night. The adults, what they did was completely reprehensible. They not only instigated, they allowed another 15-year-old to attack and brutally beat our 9-year-old client.
Thompson said her press conference Thursday is her latest attempt to see action on these issues.
There has been allegations of gross neglect over and over. I am holding this press conference today to call for action and accountability.
Thompson tells me that despite her work to draw attention to these problems, she hasn't seen any progress. So far, she says, she's gone to the state Auditor General and the chairs of House committees, but the issue hasn't received a hearing.
As if I have been beating the drum on this since June, either someone is being protected within the Department of Health and Human Services, community mental health, or they are not addressing my concerns because I have an R behind my name. I don't know what other answer we can come up with.
Speaker Joe Tate and Democratic leadership within the House Committee on Behavioral Health were not available to comment on Thursday. Reporting in Lansing, I'm Elle Myers, CBS News, Detroit.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Rescue Mission Weekly live stream. Joining us tonight is the very state representative featured in that clip, Jamie Thompson, from, let's just say, Downriver District. Is that fair to say for you to just describe where you're from? I got in trouble with your colleague, Jamie Green, last week because it was like 20 minutes until I explained to people where she was from. So you're from Downriver.
Downriver, and then I represent parts of Monroe County as well. They don't ever want to be left out.
Parts of Monroe County and which is kind of Downriver also, and in Wayne County. Welcome everybody. Patty P, good to see you, and Allegan News, good to see you as well. We have a number of things to talk about tonight, but of course the big thing is, and we're trying to get caught back up on stuff that's going on in Lansing. We had Jamie Green on last week, but you've been a big advocate on this main issue. And one of the things that I think is important to point out is, like, the news story touched on this, that there's some reason why you're not getting this hearing. And what the news doesn't say is you are a target of the Democrats because you're in a tough seat. So they want to do everything they can to destroy you in the upcoming election. And that means that the people who are being victimized by the state that you're trying to call attention to, they're not going to get their hearing because they don't want to give you legitimacy. It seems like that's what the case is to me. At least that's how I read this. Let me know if you think that's incorrect, which probably you would not. But anyway, go ahead, Jamie. I want to give you the floor and kind of set the table for what's going on, what this whole story is all about.
Thank you. So I live in Brownstown, and that's in Wayne County. And on our news, we have the Detroit news, the Metro Detroit area. And I have been consistently seeing things on the news since about June, maybe a little bit earlier of 2023. And I kept bringing it up to the chairs. I serve on 3 committees, and any one of those committees could have had a hearing on this. I serve on Family, Children, and Seniors, Health Policy, and then Subcommittee Behavioral Health for Health Policy. So starting in June, I took it to verbally having conversations. Have you heard about what's going on? We really need to bring this to the attention. And as I kept bringing it to their attention and I was escalating it, the situation at Hawthorne actually began to escalate itself. So it started out in June of 2023. There was, I believe, 13 teenagers that had escaped from Hawthorne. So the Hawthorne facility is located in Novi. So at that time in June, about 13 teenagers ended up running away and escaping from the facility. 2 of them attempted to rob a gas station, and the clerk pulled his firearm on them and almost shot him until he realized it was a teenager. So everyone's like, how did these kids get out? What's going on? Where's the supervision? Thank goodness that kid was not shot. And then shortly after that, they decided to have an active shooter drill, but very active. They never notified local law enforcement that they were this was just a run. Local law enforcement thought it was the real deal. So you literally had everyone show up, SWAT show up, they surrounded the building. Law enforcement did not know this was just a drill because somebody forgot to tell them. So you've got severely emotionally disturbed children, autistic children, mentally disabled children. Can you even imagine? So they did get sued for that. Then this is like, bringing it into July, August. So then in late summer, the building was condemned. Myself and a few other representatives, along with Senator Weber, did a listening tour and started listening to parents. And then I started joining groups where I was talking with parents. So we approached the Auditor General actually and asked them to do an inspection on what was going on, especially with the recipient rights. Because in these health departments and health facilities, you have a recipient rights officer who is responsible when a parent contacts them with a concern about their child to get back to them. They were not getting back to the parents. We waited several months before the Auditor General decided to pick it up. But in the meantime, Hawthorne facility got condemned because of mold, failing infrastructure, the kids being able to escape. They closed it. They took like 20, 25 kids, sent them to Walter Reuther, which is in Westland, which is an adult psychiatric facility. Now, they sent them there without...
That sounds totally fine, by the way. Just putting kids in an adult facility. You can't imagine anything going wrong with a bunch of mentally challenged folks, They had no preparation. This was in about June.
So then probably late August, again, I'm watching the local news and I see 2 whistleblowers come out and say that these children had not been outside since June, since they got there. So these children are not in prison. These children are mentally challenged or emotionally disturbed. They suffer from schizophrenia, anxiety, you name it, from the lowest, kind of just having behavioral health issues to being very autistic and nonverbal, had not been outside. They were putting black poster boards on their windows because they couldn't figure out how to keep the adult population away from accessing them. And then they said the reason they hadn't let them outside was because they they were like a back order for the fencing because they had to put up fencing in order for the kids to go outside so that they couldn't escape. So they just kept them inside until almost September. So June, July, August, September, they hadn't been outside. So it was 2 teachers that came on the news and said, hey, we can't do this no more. This is wrong. This is cruel. These kids need fresh air. These kids are not in jail. So what the hell? So I go right to Chair Braybeck and say, this is behavioral health. we need to bring them in and we need to hammer them. We need to question them. What is going on with these kids? And are these kids safe in the care of the state? So that fell on deaf's ear. Gosh, now we're July, August, September. Still, I'm writing press releases about it. I'm still doing Zooms with the parents. I'm still hearing one woman who has 2 boys there that are both autistic. They have lost weight. They've deteriorated since they've been there. They've went from verbal to nonverbal. There has been so many.
Wait. Tell us what that means. They went from verbal to nonverbal. Like, as in they're no longer talking to anybody?
Yes. So they're deteriorated. So they're autistic, but they were verbal. So meaning that they would talk. They may say, a few words, but now they've just closed right up. They've become a shell. They've gotten
that's like a kind of extreme trauma. Like
you
are afraid to speak. You know how to speak. You're afraid to speak.
You're setting. They're going backwards. They're not going forward. They go there to get help so that they move forward. Because these parents, like this woman, she has 2 boys. They're twins. They're both autistic, and one was a little bit further. More on the spectrum than the other one. The other one could do a little bit of activities of daily life, but she was having a hard time with his education. So they're supposed to educate, they're supposed to counsel, they're supposed to get their medication straight, they're supposed to monitor that. They were flipping their medications around, they weren't notifying the parents. I mean, that's the law. Your child, if your child's medication is changed, you have to be notified prior to the change. You have to approve the change. And then if this is a psychotropic, there needs to be interventions in place. There needs to be blood work drawn. There's so many things that needs to be done that they were not getting these parents the information, and the parents would call and call. They were, even the first 3-4 months that they were there, they were running on a Monday through Friday visitation schedule. So if you were a parent and you had a child there and you worked Monday through Friday, guess what? You didn't get to see your kid because they didn't have weekend visits. So it all kind of exploded. I did a formal email request for a hearing to both the behavioral health and family, children's, and seniors. No response. So then I actually did an official request on my letterhead, and I got everyone that serves on behavioral health on the Republican side to demand a hearing on this. And nothing happened. We ended up organizing, a few of us, a tour of the facility. That was just a joke. They only let us see 2 floors. They were very nervous. Their body language was very defensive. And then me being a nurse, anytime I would ask what their protocol was on A, B, C, D, E, they would just really say, well, we follow the mental health code. And I said, well, I understand you follow the mental health code, but why don't you tell me what that code is? And they failed to do it. When we laughed, I actually joked and I said, all right, guys, you can breathe now. It's all good. We're leaving now. You can breathe. It's okay. Pat him on the back, because they were just, one guy was just sitting there like this. It was terrible. I was just disgusted. Not even a week later after that, I'm having lunch with my staff in district. I get a phone call from the mom. Oh my God, check your phone. Then I find that I saw that video where that boy, now I issued my request for a formal hearing end of October. November 1st, I put out a press release saying that I had issued it and we were waiting for a response. So sometime in the end of November, right around the same time I put out that request for a hearing on this situation, a little boy's head was stomped in. Well, the staff sat there and did nothing. Now they'll tell you, one of the staff was one was let go, one quit, one was on suspension, but there was never a plan. How did that happen? How are you going to fix that? And there has been 0 hearings in committee. So I got in touch with the attorney, Arnold Reed, who was handling this case. And I said, hey,
was that the gentleman we saw in that clip?
Yes. And let me tell you, he is a beast. He and I had a great conversation. He's not new to the problems with our state-run facilities, with the juvenile detention facility. We got problems there. You got, not to jump around, but I've been bringing that to their attention too. Do you care about these kids? You paint me as this Republican that is opposed to having a heart. And,
you paint me as this Republican. It's funny how that's their assumption. It's so gross.
Yeah. Because I'm a conservative woman and I support my right to bear arms. And I don't have a heart. I don't care about children. They're the only ones that care about children. They're the only ones that care about social issues. And I'm screaming, hey, listen, I'm a representative in Wayne County. I know that sucks for you that I'm a female Republican in Wayne County and you're not used to that. But the Wayne County Juvenile Detention Facility had multiple allegations of rape. What did they do? The building got condemned. They sent every single one of those children within the last 10 months to a year to Dickerson. Guess where that is? That's an adult jail. They sent them there and they put a state employee in place to monitor to make sure that no more allegations of rape or abuse was happening. Guess what comes out in the news? The state employee that was put there to protect the children had allegations of sex abuse against him. Or her. I shouldn't say her. I don't know if it was a female or a male, but that was on my local news. And I'm hearing all this on my local news. I'll tell you something else. So the mom that had notified me about that there was this new case, it was also rumored that my Democrat colleague who runs the subcommittee on behavioral health has a bill, a mental health bill that she thinks is golden. It's a mental health parity where it's supposed to bring parity to your physical health and your mental health so that you have access similarly to codes and billing, that more things would be covered. Now, we know that people that struggle with mental health more than most likely are in low income inner city neighborhoods where they don't have private insurance. Well, Brayback's bill only provides health parity to private payers and no one with Medicaid, nobody with any low income or ability to pay for their services. So I was not in support of it. Nobody was in support of it. It hasn't got a hearing, but it was rumored that if Rep. Thompson were to vote yes on that bill, then she could get a hearing on Hawthorne.
Oh, so that's all you have to do is just trade your vote for someone else's bill to be able to get a hearing on your own?
No, nobody's and the mom was like, no, absolutely not. That's not who Jamie is. And not doing that, wasn't in support of the bill anyway, and would never trade my vote for anything. But it's interesting that we've hammered very hard on this. We as a women's caucus have tried getting together, getting stronger. And we're working with Jamie and Ann Bolin and Rochelle Smith and Angela Regas and just every single one of them saying these are issues that affect our children. We're strong, conservative women that represent Michigan that are standing up and saying, what the heck is going on with the kids in the care of the state? And how are you tearing down families when you're trying to paint homeschool families as abusers?
Yeah, there was a comment on that. There's a comment on that on the stream just now. Although, but before I go to that, the other thing I'd point out though is, there is a well understood dark past of mental health institutions. I mean, the One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest movie, the history of electroshock therapy, and all kinds of things that happened in 100 years ago, where people were sent to the sanatoriums, which of course were barbaric. And actually, just in looking into this story today, I ran across this article about the haunting insides of an abandoned Northville psychiatric hospital. And there's this very, very dark and gloomy looking, here, let me make this a little bit bigger, gloomy looking photo of this abandoned psychiatric hospital in Northville. And they show, and it might not be fair to show it, having now been in a state of decay over the years. But the general point is, we have this understanding that this is the way things were, and now it's so much more progressive, and the government is so much more kind and sympathetic and understanding towards its wards, which is what these people are. I mean, basically, once you are in the system, you are there. I mean, it's like being a prisoner. It really is. Mm-hmm. And when I worked for Representative Riley, we had people that would come to us, and they would often say, what can I do? My loved one is being abused in this facility. And I was like, well, do you have power of attorney? No. Okay, well then basically we can't tell you, we can't give you anything. We can't because we have no ability to do anything on this. And it's hideous, but that's the way that is.
It is. And there's a big push too. And the real problem is when we realized, I think, as a state that, you know, there was a problem with a lot of these facilities, and they closed down all the state-run hospitals because they didn't want people to be institutionalized. The fact is that as much as we don't want it to be true, there are people that will have to be institutionalized. And that's just how it is. And their family wants them there so that they're safe. They want to be there so that they feel like they're safe. And these are even some children and adults. Yeah. And what they want to do within this community mental health world that I'm just learning now as a new representative is they don't want them there. They want them back in the community. They want them to be an active participant in the community, which they will never be. And they're fine with that. And their family is fine with that. Their family just wants them safe. When you have children that are attacking, stabbing, biting, spitting, threatening to kill their brothers and sisters and their parents, and then the parent asks for help, they're now coming after the parent and calling CPS on the parent. I've had so many phone calls with parents about that too, where they're saying, we can't get you the help. They're just falling through the cracks. But we bring community mental health before us in a hearing. You know how many freshmen Democrat reps are social workers. There is quite a few. And guess where they came from?
Yeah. They're all Democrats are like social workers, teachers, lawyers, union bosses. That's pretty much.
Oh, there's nothing to see here. They're doing a wonderful job. Everything is great. We just need more money, and then we can do more great things. And then you talk to the families, and they're saying, "What? Nope, I didn't get that service. But guess what? The guy at the top, the leader at the top, on these boards, on these community mental health boards, they're getting huge promotions and huge things because they've supposedly provided all these services to families, autistic families, severely emotionally disturbed families that aren't getting that help. And talking about the Auditor General, that's what we use the Auditor General for. That's the only way we can get to the bottom of some of this. So, okay, all of a sudden now we're calling out the state departments, and Whitmer wants to defund them by the tune of $8.3 million. That's bullshit. Sorry.
Hey, you're fine. I have no objection to swearing on my show. By the way, I've got, in case people are wondering what's going on here, I've got a cat on my lap that does not live here anymore, but for some reason still comes inside all the time, and she's making my nose itch. So there's that. Anyway, the other thing is it's St. Patrick's Day, which is actually, I think, a very, very sad anniversary, 4 years since Gretchen Whitmer's lockdowns. By the way, Left of Center says the Rumble feed froze, so I'm here now. The Rumble feed is working fine for me, just so you know. And in fact, Left of Center says on Rumble, said Rep. Thompson has been vocal on the mental health crisis among children, and I hope she can influence action in the legislature, and her school safety bill should have bipartisan support. So there you go. Thank you, Left of Center. There you go. So at least one person, and by the Left of Center, I think last week was like asking questions that I think was leading me to question whether this person was indeed the let's just say the neutral bipartisan individual that he or she has marketed him or herself as.
I know. We were watching that.
Point being, well, we will take the compliment. And the point being, yes, this should be bipartisan. It really should be. Mm-hmm. But anyway, going back to what I was going to say, it's been 4 years since it's St. Patrick's Day 2024. I remember in 2020, it was the Sunday, March 15th, 2 days before St. Patrick's Day. And I had no plans to do anything except to hang out at home. And I had this premonition, and I was like, I think I need to go out and get a beer at my local bar, because I don't think I might have the opportunity to do that again for very, very much longer. Mm-hmm. So I went to Fender's in downtown Milan and ended up sitting next to the owner of the place. And he was like, listen, I'm just praying that Whitmer does not shut us down before St. Patrick's Day, because that is by far our biggest profit day of the year. And if she takes away St. Patrick's Day, we are going to be devastated. Sure enough, the very next day, the 16th of March, 2020, Whitmer put out the lockdown orders. They had no St. Patrick's Day. In fact, I think a few months later, the bar had converted itself into a pop-up PPE distribution center, which probably didn't do well for them. They did manage to survive, thank God, because they are a wonderful little place. But a lot of people didn't. And Whitmer apparently, has had a lot of issues with the Auditor General, talking about a lot of the mistakes that she made.
Mm-hmm.
Mistakes in scare quotes, of course, because I mean, at the time, people were like, wait a minute, this illness is fatal for senior citizens, but not for the huge population. We're gonna just shut down everything, the entire economy. This is gonna have horrible effects on the entire population. And now apparently, Rich Whitmer has a problem with the Auditor General. Is that what's going on? Is that my understanding? Am I correct about that? What's the story with the Auditor General? But by the way, I'll tell my understanding with the IG, but you go first, or the agent.
Well, so the Auditor General, for your viewers that don't know, it is a nonpartisan position that you can go to them as a legislator and you can bring very specific information. I think it was Representative Johnson that had went to them. It was either on the unemployment fraud that was happening during COVID, or it was on the nursing home deaths. But representatives can go and say, I want data on this. And then you can even talk to them and they'll say, well, in order for me to get it done quickly, or how we can narrow it down so you're getting the exact information that you want, because sometimes that has to be very specific on data. They're pretty much the watchdog for the state of Michigan. They're investigating the departments and where the money is going, if UIA claims if there's fraud, when UIA is not investigating. So all of a sudden, Whitmer puts out a statement that, her $80.7 billion budget for this upcoming year that she wants to push will defund the Auditor General by $8.3 million. And the gentleman that's the director of that, he spoke out very vocally, very upset about that, because we utilize them in many cases. And it just doesn't make any sense that she's pushing for more departments, more programs with no oversight to see, do these programs actually work? What is the feedback? There's too many programs, too much money, and nobody is getting any better. And nobody can tell you why, because there's no accountability for the multiple programs. If we were to lose and run the risk, because you got to imagine the data that they got to go through. They can't get their staff removed or lose resources. We need them to have resources. That's how we hold government accountable, is someone that can look at it from the outside, non-biased, and just look at data, raw data. So she's getting hammered hard on it. And I'd like to see how she's going to come back, if she's going to keep pushing for it, or if the Dems are going to keep pushing for this when the budget starts coming up. But yeah.
Yeah, it's
a little
strange.
suspicious.
It's strange what things Lansing does and does not have money for. Like they've made a very big deal about all of the amazing all the school funding they have, although apparently Ann Arbor public schools are losing $25 million. But whatever. Hey, I'm not a big public school fan. That's not a problem to me personally. But the funny thing is, like, when it comes to looking for ways the government should spend their money, like, you would think oversight would be a big thing. I remember, well, I'll tell you my story. When I worked in Washington, it was in 2013, and the big story right then was the Obamacare website was a complete disaster. Not just because it didn't work properly, but it was a huge security problem. And this is a website that talked to private medical records, state medical records, immigration records, all kinds of things where you would have a very, very terrible security problem if you didn't want to deal with this. And so we introduced a bill to say the Government Accountability Office, used to be called the General Accounting Office. It's like essentially the investigative arm of the legislative branch. Needs to look at its website top to bottom. And what we found was, first off, the GAO itself said, we don't want to do this because we don't have the resources to do it. And we're like, well, then let's give you the resources to do it then, because it's kind of a big deal. They were like, no, we don't want to do that. What ended up happening was they said, okay, let's have Center for Medicaid Services do the audit, which is the agency that made the website. And we're like, that's stupid. That's going to make the fox watch the hen house. And but if, it's ended up happening. The bill passed the House. After that, after being completely neutered, died in the Senate, and that was the end of it. But same thing with the Auditor General's office. Now, my recollection, and
did you ever utilize them for research when you were a staffer?
Well, here's my story with the Auditor General's office. When Representative John O'Reilly was in his second term, he was assigned to be the vice chair of the Oversight Committee, and Matt Hall, who was a freshman at the time, was to be the chair. And the Auditor General's office came to us with what they had was their multi-year audit of CPS, Child Protective Services. And this was something they'd said, hey, we understand how there's this, we understand that there's this issue with the legislature, that there's this big turnover because members who initiate a study of something are gone by the time the study is done. So here we have this multi-year study that previous lawmakers proposed, and here we are now with our study of CPS. And the study of CPS was like, well, there's all these different problems. The problems, of course, were, not that with, CPS is handling of different issues and stuff that you're talking about you could bite into. No, the stuff that they were saying was like, okay, so here's an issue that we have. We have this case, for example, where we had this kid who was diagnosed with being nearsighted, and so he needed glasses, and he was given a class 3 designation, which is not the classification that means that there has to be immediate action taken. And then the parents didn't get him the glasses that he needed. So therefore, we wish that this case had been not just a case 3, but something else, but it couldn't be a class 2. So this whole hearing about this stuff is so stupid. And so Matt Hall goes, so we need like a class 2.5, basically. I'm thinking like, no, not really. This is complete, because if something needs attention, it does. If it doesn't, it doesn't. That was the solution, and it got rammed through because why not? Because the Auditor General recommended it. We're like, where did the Auditor General become a policymaker? That became this one. I mean, it was so weird, but that was my recollection of how this all happened. It was
when I first got there, and we had like an education meeting with them on what they were there for if we wanted to access them. It was made pretty clear that they had no intent on putting through policies or legislation. They were just there for data research and gathering information, and then they give it to you without any bias, and then what you choose to do with it is supposed to be up to you. That was kind of my meeting with them, and the only thing that we've utilized them for is to look into those recipient right complaints and why they weren't.
I hope that's the way it's happening now. Although the one thing I would say is, I mean, and I don't see the real issue, I think, is that the investigative arm of the legislature should be fully funded and should serve both parties equally, and they should have full subpoena power over everything. Yep. And the reality is they really don't. They don't have the ability to get to the truth of all these issues. So anyway, that was my experience. I will, I'm going to go back and look through my records and confirm that everything I just told you was the way I remember it being at the time. But that is what I remember it being, was the Auditor General office was like lobbying us to create this new class of CPS offenses that they actually ended up pushing through, which I don't know what the purpose is.
I'm sure that there's actually really, really serious, valid concerns with CPS in the state of Michigan right now. After there's so much stuff that was the repercussions of those lockdowns, and it still has never been fully addressed.
Yeah, and this also, by the way, was pre-lockdown. So now things have, I'm sure the environment's changed entirely. Yeah. But I think just in general, I mean, the issue fundamentally is when you work for the government, you're inclined to be sympathetic towards other people that work for the government. And like, I remember like one of the things we had this meeting with a bunch of union bosses, teachers unions, when I worked in Washington, and they're like, you guys can't actually think that parents can be trusted with these kids, can you? Like, they hated the notion of parents being able to control kids, because their perception of parents is these are a bunch of idiots who don't know, as we know, what is good for children. Like, that was clearly what their attitude was going into things. By the way, Heather Dow asks on X, what do you think about the mandatory kindergarten legislation? Feel free to address this, Jamie.
Well, I'll be honest with you. I did not. I lost my father, so I did not vote on that budget in 23. I was in Kentucky at the time, but there was numerous things. I would have not voted yes on that budget. I don't believe that we have the funding in the state of Michigan for it. The only thing that I do like about it is that it does help with childcare for single moms that are trying to go to school or work and can't afford childcare or don't qualify for Head Start, don't have parents that can help them watch their kids. So I don't believe that it's going to educate our children any better, that we're going to all of a sudden have, rocket scientists in third and fourth grade, like this push to get them in school because they're going to do better academically. I don't see any research that supports that. The only thing that I do like in one aspect is if they want to, because it will help. My daughter was a single mom, and my husband and I had to help her watch the kids in order for her to try to go back to school to be a nurse because dad wasn't around and there was no one else to do it but us. So I get that part of it, but I don't think that Michigan right now can afford that. I think that when Michigan gets back up, let's even get into the 30th state or the 25th state. And when we're educating our children and getting all the social indoctrination out of our schools, and that's another thing I worry about, because you get them younger, the way that these like Wayne Risa and these Head Start programs are, they are so politically correct, and they are just ramming these narratives down our kids' throats, stuff that these kids don't need to be thinking about. So I don't like that either.
Yeah, I see there's a lot of comments on Rumble and Facebook talking about the homeschooling registration bill. We will come to that, but also I do want to read some chats on Rumble as well. Let's see. Hurlbag says, Jamie, you go, girl. This is a very serious issue that is not getting the level of attention it deserves. Keep fighting and exposing the truth. By the way, I'm looking up like this because I'm reading Rumble chats. Charlotte Cosmic says, AG Nessel must be really boozing it. She's just politically prosecuting and not correcting executive branch for passing unconstitutional laws. Thanks, Jamie Thompson, for doing a great job. Little Achilles says, read The Best Minds by Jonathan Frosen, an excellent book on the exact problem, which is actually nationwide. Charlotte Cosmic also says, Whitmer, abusing Administrative Procedures Act of 1969 Act. Public functionaries need to read this and start taking back their authority and cut her off from usurpation. Well, there was a big issue over that in 2020. I think
nothing ever happened to her, and that still blows my mind. Her rating.
That's the big thing too. Is she should have been removed from office in 2022, and she wasn't, to the great disgrace of the Michigan voters. And because of that, this is why they think that they're above any accountability, because they weren't held accountable for the most radical deprivation of civil liberties in America.
Yeah, what did they do? They pushed for this reproductive freedom. Everyone, they got all these young women out to vote. They got everyone angry, and everyone forgot what she did to us with the lockdowns, what she did in nursing homes, what she did to small businesses, what she did to people's sanity. Every bit of rights that we lost, people that changed careers, people that lost everything. And she was reelected. Like, did you forget? My God.
It's awful. And the reason that will be remembered by history that she got reelected is because she was in favor of killing babies. Amazing.
They're not stopping that. And that's what has got me. I get angrier every single day because we have people that is not their number one priority. They are so afraid. I mean, when you have a vice president going to an abortion clinic, the very first vice president in the history of the nation or president that would go to an abortion clinic and rave and lie about what Republicans' intent is, because they're so afraid that the voters have had enough and they can't get them to vote for Biden. So they're going to continue to hammer that this statewide ban or this national ban on abortion. They're not going to let that die. They think that's their only ticket to win again. They don't have any record on inflation, all these. Every time he talks about all the everything's so wonderful. The jobs are wonderful. The economy's great. You know, the lowest unemployment rate. And that always cracks me up because the unemployment rate is only based on people that get unemployment. But what about all the people that aren't working? Those numbers don't ever get added into anything. And then we have this IVF thing, and then we have
speaking of that, people have been asking about they want you to comment about that. So I do want to get to that, and I also and then also too, I want to return to this homeschooling bill issue because that was another thing too. But touching on your point, by the way, and I don't want to get you in trouble by raising this issue, but one of the other things that happened this past week was Ethan Crumbly, the Oxford shooter, his father was convicted, as his mother was previously. And a lot of people are saying, because they obviously negligence, obviously huge civil penalties were called for, but it is unprecedented that someone is now found guilty of manslaughter for not preventing something, because by all the evidence that was before the jury was that the kid stole the gun. Obviously, the parents should have known better, should have locked it up, et cetera, et cetera. But the question then becomes, what's next in terms of parental liability? Oh, people recommended you give your kids drugs. You didn't give the kid drugs. Kid did bad thing. You're responsible. Like, the precedent that has now been opened on this is seriously problematic. And one of the things and this becomes a homeschool issue because people are talking about this homeschool issue. There's a homeschool registry. They're trying to say homeschoolers, if any, they are a bunch of derelicts, despite the education statistics, despite what happens in government schools. So I don't know if you want to comment in general about what this whole issue is.
I'm very concerned about the precedent that it sets for parents being charged with that. My husband and I, it just has been all over the news to the point that it's nauseating almost, because it's the only thing they seem to cover. But what we were looking into and looking at was, I'm not a lawyer, so to prove that they had to have something to do with the crime. I agree with you on everything.
Okay. And I'm not a lawyer either.
And how do
I do know what a lawyer would say. A lawyer would say, okay, there's these two different standards. One is negligence. Negligence is you should have. Let me put this. Let me gather my thoughts around negligence versus recklessness. Negligence is you should have known you shouldn't do something, but you did it. Recklessness is you definitely knew you shouldn't have done something, but you did it. For example, drunk driving. You definitely knew you shouldn't drive drunk, but you drove drunk. So if you drive drunk and you hit somebody, it's reckless because you had to have known that you shouldn't have done this thing. Negligence is a civil standard. You can say you should have known you shouldn't have done something, and that's not criminal.
Right.
The line there is when you knew you shouldn't have done something, then you can be criminally liable for the outcome of your actions because you knew or you presumptively know. For example, Alec Baldwin is a Hollywood actor who has handled guns for years and years, and he told police, I know how guns work. I know what gun safety laws are. I'm an expert on guns. I pointed a gun at Helena Hutchins and pulled the trigger and fired it, and it killed her. Therefore, Alec Baldwin, you are guilty of recklessness because you knew, and this is a presumption. Gun owner is presumed to know that you have safety rules, that you don't point a gun at somebody and pull the trigger unless you're absolutely certain that the gun is not loaded, or you're shooting someone intentionally and presumably self-defense. You have to know as a gun owner that if you point a gun at somebody and pull the trigger, it might go off and kill them. Like, that's recklessness. That's a criminal standard. Negligence is less than that. Negligence is you can't assume they knew this.
Right.
And that was breached by this case, because you can say, okay, well, they should have known this kid was a danger to each other, to other kids. You should have known this kid could be a murderer. Not you did know, you should have known, but they convicted him over this. And
And
if that prediction stands, and if this goes further and further, now the next question is, okay, what else will parents be criminally charged for things they should have known, which typically is civil negligence, but now they're going to be exposed to criminal recklessness. That's where it's going to go.
I agree with you on all of that. And I was trying to think of what my husband said, because he said, if he's on here, he can say it. He watches the show too. And he said it perfectly. We were talking about it, and I was just like, this is crazy. This is a very scary time because of that. Because there's multiple things that parents, like when you say, how can you prove that they should have known and didn't know? Or you can be negligent and not be, a great parent, but were they really responsible for that? Also, why wasn't, this whole thing with the government immunity on the school? We heard that the teachers in the school told them, we don't think you should take him home. We think he would be better off being with his peers right now.
Yeah. There's a huge thing is the school who have people who are experts.
Supposed to be experts,
licensed psychologists, people who are supposed to be experts in safety. No, they're not the ones who are guilty of manslaughter.
Right.
Even though they should have known that the kid might be a danger to others. But no, they're not the ones charged. That I think is another huge aspect of this. Thank you for bringing this up. This is also an escape valve for the government workers, who probably were even better positioned to know than the parents that the kid might be a danger, because they were better experts than the average parent would be.
Common sense. My son Jackson got sent home for the littlest things. Every time I turned around, he got sent home for looking at someone wrong. There was no reason why that boy should not have been sent home by that school. And shame on them for seeing a drawing and not checking his backpack or really sending him home. And the whole thing is it's just pushed by the media as something it's not. And I'm very disturbed by it. I'm not happy about it. I think that we're in a very new world right now, not only with our children, but with our own, for responsible gun owners right now, all the unconstitutional bills that came before us and were passed that they don't even know how to implement, that multiple departments are putting out misinformation. That's the problem with these Democrats. Not to change the subject, but they write these things, these bills that just sound so great or look great on paper, and they just champion them. But when you say, how's that going to work in the real world? Like, what does that look like on the ground? How are you going to implement that? They don't have a clue. Oh, shoot, didn't think about that. I've got a local gun store in my district in Newport, having a hell of a time, because every time he goes to sell a firearm legally, there's this miscommunication, because they're telling him that he has to, that at the dealer, they need to do the NICS check, and he has to go to the local police department and get the NICS check. And then he goes to the local police department just to check. Actually, it was someone else, and they've got documentation and papers that are saying the complete opposite thing. And then someone's saying, well, no, as long as you've had a NICS check within 5 days, you don't have to get two. So by the time this person, that wants to, and these are business owners, this is how they make a living legally. People are like, you know what, forget it. They never come back and even buy the gun, because there's so much entanglement into getting it.
Right. All right. I will now go to left of center, who wants to know about your comments on in vitro fertilization, which I think, another gentleman talked about IVF recently, which is President Trump. So if you want to, and I'm not familiar with what your remarks were, but I know you did mention that this was a thing, so we can talk about that. Go ahead if you want to.
So when I started seeing, I kept wondering. So I will be honest with you. I hear that there are bills in the House from I can't remember the name of the rep that was supposed to introduce them. Anyhow, there's bills that have been introduced. They've not got a committee hearing, and we've been just, you would not believe the amount of bills that have been coming at us this last 2 weeks. So I have not read those bills. But what I noticed nationally was, why is Alyssa Slotkin having all these roundtables, and why is everyone saying that Republicans want to ban IVF? And I thought, well, that's crazy. Why would they want to do that? So then I myself had to say, well, what the heck happened in Alabama? So then I look into it because we're so busy on what's going on in Michigan. I'm not keeping up with what's going on in Alabama. So I find out that there was 3 families that sued a fertility clinic because there was an accident and embryos were damaged and lost and destroyed. So their argument to the Alabama Supreme Court was those were not a group of cells, those were a life. So they wanted to sue the fertility clinic for killing their possible children. So the Alabama state, the Supreme Court came back very conservatively and spoke biblically about that being a life. And then immediately, so that was their ruling, like embryos are a life. That was their standing. And then the Republican legislature in Alabama jumped on it really quick to write legislation then to protect these fertility clinics in case there was an accident, to not hold them accountable should there have been an accident. Otherwise, all these fertility clinics would be shut down because everyone would be afraid that they would be sued. And then this opens the door to a lot of probably very uncomfortable conversations that we're going to start to have. Ethical questions. Then I've heard people throw things around like, well, if an embryo is a life, then can it be frozen? If an embryo is a life, and the parent, signs off on they've been successfully implanted and they're pregnant, and they sign off on the embryos to be used for research and study and stem cells. This was just an industry that never was ethically looked at. And I can say that I am 100%. I'm not looking to ban. No Republican that I've ever spoke to wants to ban in vitro fertilization. That's the rumor and the narrative that the Democrats are pushing because it's scary.
You mean the Democrats are lying about abortion? I've never heard of that happen before.
Well, they're scared to death because they have a state Supreme Court ruling that those embryos are a life. And therefore, now the whole thing
in Alabama, you mean?
In Alabama. But that's just it. They run off with these narrative, it's just that narrative and those lies that's why I was like, why in the heck why are they saying, Republicans want to ban IVF and don't let Republicans get the House, don't let them in the presidency because they don't want you to have kids. Well, no. IVF is a beautiful thing, but now, just like anything else in healthcare, you have to ethically make a decision, and there's going to have to be some hard conversations. Should that standing go anywhere else? Is an embryo a life? Can a fertility doctor, if it's mishandled and damaged, I don't know what that, in all honesty, I don't know what that precedent's going to set, but I do know that nobody in Michigan has any intention on banning IVF.
It should be pointed out in Michigan, the standard is an IVF embryo is not a life, nor is
that's very
fetus at 1 month, nor is a fetus at 3 months, nor is a fetus at 6 months, nor is a fetus at 9 months. In fact, you can just kill a baby, a living baby in Michigan, and chances are they can't even investigate it because of the Democrats' rewriting of the Michigan Constitution would make that a violation of the civil liberties of the abortion.
Right? So what is that? Because they're saying, should Republicans get back majority and should we have a Republican governor, or what that would look like? They say that we just have this, we can just push a button and change the Constitution. That's not that easy. Isn't that a 2/3? What is it? It's
in Michigan. It takes, first of all, either legislature or legislature or $10 million worth of private activity to get the issue put on the ballot, and then it takes a majority of voters to amend the Constitution.
They would have, so even if the legislation were passed, the voters would still have to agree to it.
Yeah.
So that's that lie that they keep going on and on about because they're still fighting for reproductive rights. Well, you have reproductive, whatever you want to call it, it's legal in the state of Michigan. That is legal to the point of which people, they don't like to hear, the point of birth. And, as a woman and as a nurse and as a mother, it breaks my heart. I would not want to be put into a position where I was, or my child, my grandchildren, when they have children, or my friends and family put into a position where they were faced with an unexpected pregnancy. But you know what? I'm pro-life, and I think that we need to cultivate helping women in the state of Michigan so that they do have a choice. But what are we doing to help them so that they choose life? What are we doing? We're really good at, supporting them when they're pregnant, but then afterwards, when dad leaves and they're all on their own, we're not very good at helping them afterwards. And we need to be in Michigan. We need to be doing everything to have very good prenatal care, better education, better opportunities for women, keep dad in the household, have a culture in Michigan that supports families, encourages families to stay together instead of separating. Look at the problems we have with our kids because dads are just disappearing and they're not involved. And then the ones that are involved, the system's so corrupt, they're the ones that get hammered and they're saying, I actually do pay child support. I actually do take my child. I actually am involved in their life, and they're taking more of their paycheck and they can't even survive. The whole thing is just backwards.
It's amazing. And again, and I'm not gonna bring on the screen these idiotic comments from left of center, who's obviously trying to lay a partisan political hack trap with you over this garbage. Because again, the reality in Michigan is killing babies, living babies.
I can't see the comments, so I trust you.
100% legal. Good for you. It's good you can't. I didn't know you couldn't. I thought you could. No. But you can't because it would just be annoying you nonstop.
I learned when I ran for office that I just don't engage.
Read the comments. Yeah, I know. When I post on X and other places, I almost never read the comments. I'm on Facebook for people who think they're arguing with me on Facebook. Like maybe Shane Trejo is posting things on Facebook for Rescue Michigan. I'm not. The only thing I post on Facebook is my streams. That's it. So anyway, on Rumble, Lola Killy says sidewalk. Okay, hold on. She also says Washington County Sheriff's Office is taking over 1 week to give a gun purchase permit.
Oh yeah. There's that. Oh, there's that too. Because you know what? There's a lot of cities. There's a lot of cities. It is a big thing right now. Remember I tried telling you about Micah from 2AEDU. I said you need to have him on the show. This guy is all over this stuff. So many cities.
Okay, so I live near Ann Arbor. I don't live in Ann Arbor anymore, thank God. But so if I go to buy a handgun or a rifle, and okay, let's say I'm buying it at Huron Valley Guns in I want to say Northville, something like that. Where does Ann Arbor get the right to impose a permit requirement on me?
So you would have to go. So is there an Ann Arbor? Because I know cities and townships and counties are different. I'm not familiar with that area. So do you have a Ann Arbor? If you bought a firearm in the city of Ann Arbor, is there an Ann Arbor police station, or do they fall under the Washtenaw County Sheriff?
They have their own police station.
Okay, then yeah, you would have to go to the police department to get a purchase permit. If you're purchasing it from a licensed FFL dealer at a gun store, you still have to get that.
Basically, just picking out Ann Arbor arms out of town is what they're doing.
Yes, and then get this: a lot of these cities are saying, "Well, we only do purchase permits on Tuesdays and Fridays from 2 to 5." So
amazing.
Yep.
But if you're an Ann Arbor resident, can't you just buy a gun from someplace else? Like, isn't it really just the local gun dealers they're hurting? Like
they are.
If somebody in Ann Arbor goes to Cabela's to buy a handgun, then there's no permit requirement.
No, I don't know what Cabela's looks like, but I know the local ones. Cabela's has the same way.
They're in Dundee, is what I mean.
Yeah. I see what you're saying. Okay. Yeah. But there's the whole confusion because they put the guidance under the Department of Health and Human Services. So they put out flyers and mailers. Well, they didn't even put them out. They put them on their website. And they said that this is how this bill and this law will be implemented. So now when you purchase a firearm at a store, not only do you have to come, they're going to do a background check on you. And then they're going to say, we have to do a background check on you. Now you need to go to your local police department and get a background check as well. So you're going, well, that's kind of weird. Why do I need two? So, and then that dealer has to provide them a 10-page, 12-page pamphlet from the Department of Health and Human Services that talks about the risks of firearm safety and so on and so forth, and like 3 or 4 other different documentations. They have to have a poster put up in their store. Not the day February 13th that this all went into effect, none of these dealers knew any of this. And then supposedly the MSP was supposed to have been doing seminars all across Michigan, but they're giving different information than the county sheriffs are giving. Everyone's giving different information. And then the Department of Health and Human Services says, oh, yeah, there's a link on our website. So you can print this 10, 12-page pamphlet to give to every single person that purchases a firearm. And if you don't do it, that's illegal. But there was never no funding in the budget for that. So yeah, these local small business owners are really hurting. They went from, I think the guy in Newport that owns, oh goodness, I can't think of the name of the, just a little gun store in Newport. Maybe if he sold 12, 15 firearms a day, I think he's selling like 1 or 2.
Yeah, that's one of the things that they constantly try to do, is just to go after the infrastructure. Making gun manufacturers liable for things that happen because of what people use their firearms for illegally or illegally.
There's one thing, and I know, everyone got a little nervous when I went to Lansing because I'm in a 50-50 district, and they're worried how I'm going to stand on certain votes. The Second Amendment, to me, that I don't back down from that. I've not backed down on my votes from that. I'm a very firm believer in your right to protect yourself and protect your family, because nobody else is going to do it. And every time they start with this nonsense about how a school shooting could have been prevented, the law
by banning guns, yeah, of course.
Yeah, it says this is a gun-free zone. It's a gun-free zone. So the criminal took the gun and broke the law by taking the gun to the school. Maybe if they're not sitting ducks and there's actually people that carry and can protect the kids, or they come up with a better way, like a school safety package that was this bipartisan package prior to me becoming in office, that they did a ton of work on and actually would address this issue and make the schools safer, and the whole dynamics between dispatch and everything, the buildings, the glass, everything. And the Democrats won't touch it.
Yeah. Sheila Hochberg on Facebook asked, what's the difference between legal and lawful? Well, it's a semantic question, Sheila. Most people would say nothing. Some people say legal means what you can get away with under the law that you shouldn't be able to. But again, it's a semantic debate. And also,
Sheila is actually she's one of my constituents in Woodhaven. She's a good friend of mine.
Oh, cool. Ever wonder why I need all these licenses and permits, privileges when I have the Second Amendment right? Yeah, exactly. Left of Center Michigan says, and you're also insane, Adam, if you think I support terminating full-term babies. It's annoying how quickly you cast off people the second you're challenged. Well, gee, Left of Center Michigan, what did Proposal 3 do, was other than to support terminating full-term babies? Because it did. And hey, Left of Center, name me one Democrat who opposed that. Name me one Democrat organization that's pro-abortion that doesn't say, let's concede let's not kill full-term babies. Oh, there isn't one. There isn't a single one. Every single pro-abort organization in the country believes in the right to terminate babies at 9 months. No compromise. Not a single one. Name me any organization that says anything different. And if you disagree with Prop 3, did you vote no on it? Were you warning your fellow citizens, hey, by the way, this allows for killing full-term babies, because it does? That's the law. That's in the Constitution of our state now. That's in the Constitution of our state. So don't browbeat me because I'm pointing out what is actually the law of the land now. And if you, Left of Center, want to distinguish yourself from your Democrat compatriots that supported that put it on the ballot, that did it for the purpose of winning the election, by the way.
It's a little too scary for the general public. And that's the sad part. They think, that
Yeah,
there's no way.
that's the thing that
That's not
terrifies me is when you tell the people what Democrats in Lansing are doing. Oh yeah, there's this bill, House Bill 4087, that allows kids to run from home and get castrated without their parents' consent. They're like, no way, no way, no way. Yeah, that's a big part of Operation Watchdog. Is hey, listen, folks, this is what they're doing. It's in writing. Here's how they're voting. They're voting for it. They're doing these things. They are doing these things.
You know, another thing that really, really, and I probably never would get another opportunity to talk about it other than on your show, that infuriates me is when they scare the hell out of these young girls because they tell them that if by chance they had a tubal pregnancy or an ectopic pregnancy, that if abortion was not legal, they would be let to die. And that if we get a Republican president, he's going to ban abortion, which is a lie. That is a lie that they are telling you. And you are going to be allowed to die. First of all, if anyone knows anatomy, and we have Google, so you can look it up if you don't know, that is an egg that comes down the fallopian tube and never implants in the uterus. It will never grow and, implant and become an embryo. That is a medical procedure, and that has to be taken care of, or that woman will die. But that is not an abortion. That is not an abortion. And no one is going to let you die because you get an ectopic pregnancy. That's just nonsense. That's the fear that they're putting through people's head that just doesn't even make any damn sense.
Yeah, that's what AOC was ranting about all over the country.
You know what? My two sons are in their 20s, and their friends that were our girls, and my son's girlfriend at the time, they were generally concerned. They were generally concerned about that because that's what they were hearing. They were, why would I be let to die? I don't even want to have kids now. Geez, maybe I should get fixed because what if something accidentally happened? I
don't even want to have kids now. That's the goal, folks. That's what the agenda is.
Yeah,
thou shalt not procreate. Abortion. Well, I don't know if I want to get into the entirety of what the left agenda is on that. Not with an elected here next to me on the show. But speaking of that, I think probably, folks, it's about time to call this a stream. We will have some more streams coming up in the near future. Jamie, I'm not done. Don't.
As I say,
I'm not going to cut you off, but just to let folks know, we've got other streams coming up early this week. We have still an overdue stream on national politics, geopolitics, and by the way, a lot of awful things going on in the cult of the right-wing Marxists. We have a video of the Inquisition of a Republican district committee woman that we have the recording of, and this is all these people basically giving her, and this it's a horrible story. We're gonna have an interview with Scott McMahon talking about that. For those who have not kept up with what's going on Scott McMahon's X feed, it just gets crazier and crazier. He's been delving into what's going on in other states. It's all the same story every place else. And as in fact, I gotta find this and bring this up on stream because it's so powerful. This is from his post just a couple of days ago. This is what Scott posted, like I said, just a few days ago. This one here. I'll zoom in on this. I had 4 phone conversations yesterday with Republicans in 3 other states where the person I was talking to was crying at some point, talking about the trauma they've experienced at the hands of disruptors and their gratitude that someone is finally covering this. These are people who have given years and in some cases decades of their lives to the GOP to help get Republicans elected. The people attacking them in every case are new to the party in the last few years, and instead of door knocking and campaigning, they spend all of their energy attacking hardworking Republicans while pretending to be experts and capable of leading the party. In many cases, these people do lead the party after they seize power, and in every case, they run it into the ground. I have yet to see an example of a county, district, or state party run by disruptors that does any real work or any real get the vote effort, or that even has a remotely functional organization. So we will be catching up with Scott McMahon this week to talk about his latest findings in the bizarre ongoing story of the strange case of the cult of GOP disruptors, who apparently had a rally in Lansing this past Saturday, not knocking on doors for Josh Powell in a special election. No. They were in Lansing protesting the GOP in front of a building that was probably empty, given it was a Saturday morning. we will talk more about that during the week, and in general, I'll kind of catch you guys up on some other stories. But I do want to thank Jamie Thompson for coming on to talk about Lansing stuff, which we will be following up on this week. Last week, we were actually going to start doing Lansing stuff again. We had a great interview with Jamie Green this past Sunday. And then it suddenly came to my attention that President Trump endorsed Mike Rogers, which led to a compelling need to start a campaign to let people know, hey, Trump, that was a bad move, buddy. I can officially inform you guys, we have more than 1,000 signatures on a letter to the president asking him to reconsider his endorsement of Mike Rogers, who in his entire, and Jamie, please do not comment on this. It's not your bailiwick. I don't want you to get tied up in all this stuff. But in my humble opinion, Mike Rogers is a creature of the swamp. He would have voted to impeach Trump had he given the opportunity. He was a CNN commentator. He was a military-industrial complex leader in the House Intelligence Committee, and I don't think he's going to be a Trump ally in the U.S. Senate. So anyway, we have more than 1,000 signatures going to Trump about that. That was probably a bad move. We will see where that goes. We will talk more about that in the days and weeks to come. So anyway, all that being said, we will get back to you guys soon enough. And now getting back to some of the Lansing stuff, and I understand, Representative, like I like literally, I don't want to put you in a tough position where and I should say it's funny because I've been waging war with this Christina Caramo cult for the last several months, and now I've got people who are in that cult who have signed the letter to Trump on this stuff. So, it kind of like the nice thing is I'm just a guy who has a show and an email list, and so I can I can call balls and strikes, and where people see things in agreement with me on one thing and not another, it's okay because I'm not subject to an election. You are.
And I respect you.
So.
I respect you for that, even when you don't particularly like the way I voted on things. You've always been fair with me. You're absolutely one of the good guys. And and by the way, the folks who have my high vote score on Rescue Michigan, a lot of them are Steve Carr doing this garbage. I mean, he's hurting the team. He really is. And I look at it like I have no interest in whatsoever endorsing any of the candidates. I don't know enough about them. I don't even know about the background with Trump and them. And I tell everyone, national politics has no interest to me right now because my focus is Michigan. And my focus can't even be the entire state of Michigan. It has to be my district. And that's what I'm doing every single day, is going to local events, talking with nonprofits, talking with parents, talking with business owners. How can I make your life better? How are you struggling? Just even listening to them, being a nurturer. The nurse in me and the mother, the grandmother, I am genuinely concerned about families and the future of our children and issues that, especially being in Wayne County. I love my Monroe County people. I was just down there the other day. I'm working really hard to get to know them more. But I was born in Southwest Detroit. I've lived in Brownstown since I was 15. I've been Wayne County my entire life. We're constantly getting scraps left over from Detroit. I'm trying to constantly get information from the county where they don't pick up the phone. They don't return your phone call. Where I've got my staff calling 6-8 times to get an answer to a project. There is a lot of corruption in Wayne County, and it's trickled down into our downriver communities. And we are really tired of being shit on down here. And I'm working really, really hard. I tell you what, I bit my tongue and I reached out to Senator Camilleri And I said, you know what, dude, let's just bury the hatchet. You're the senator. I'm the rep. There's some things we can work together on. We're not going to agree on everything, but the things we do that are in the best interest for our community, let's really hit them together. Psh. Nope. No interest whatsoever. He blocks me on stuff.
That's how partisan political games work, and the victims are the people of Michigan. It's sad.
They are, and I don't. People will tell you that all the time. They will be like, "Wow, you know, I had the best thing that was actually ever said about me the other day was a MERS article that had me as not even the top 10 seats that could be flippable." Did you see that? So they had we saw the top 10 flippable seats, and I would have expected me to be 1 or 2, and I wasn't even on the list. At the end of the 10, I was listed as my Democrat opponent is a better opponent than the previous one, but that I fit my district, and I've worked really hard to make a name for myself, and I've worked across the aisle to try to get things done for the community, and that I'm going to be damn hard to beat. And that is exactly what I wanted to do, because I didn't get into this for any type of political gamesmanship or trophies, or, I mean, hell, I made more money as a nurse than I do as a state rep.
Yeah.
Like, no lie. This is crazy.
I absolutely know that's the truth.
Yeah. I really just, my heart breaks for people. Every problem that I hear, I want to solve a problem for them. And I want to talk, and I can agree with people. We can agree to disagree. But this nonsense craziness that's dividing Michigan right now has to stop.
Yeah, it really is. All right. Last comment from left of center says, can Jamie please punish DTE in some way? How would she do that? Left of center, Michigan. Gary Glenn tried to and had his career destroyed by DTE. $2 million they spent destroying him financially. You know,
I can tell you what I am excited about. I am excited that the Democrats do have interest in nuclear. I'm very excited that there are some bills to utilize nuclear and hydro, and not just push 100% solar and wind. Nuclear is good. Oh, there's 2A EDU. He jumped on.
Yeah, we shall see if they follow through with that. I don't think their voters are going to understand this crazy nuclear stuff. It's very complicated. On Rumble, Charlotte Cosmic says, could you please stop Whitler from giving our tax money to college DEI, CRT, LGBTQ programs? WTH, millions going to crap. Well, like some people say, folks, elections have consequences. Tim Kuhn says nuclear is the future. Jason Mickelborg says, didn't SCOTUS uphold that the government can't block you? I don't know what that's in reference to. All right, guys, that's going to do it for us for tonight. Representative Thompson, it's been wonderful having you on. Of course, and I say to all of my guests on my show, if you want to come back on again, let me know. You're always welcome.
Can I say one thing? Because I promised someone I would. So, and the date just lost. If anyone is in the thread, Sam, if you're in the thread, Sam is one of my staffers. Sam is my legislative director. Put the date that we're having that wine event in Flat Rock. We are doing delegates for Trump. It's just going to be a mixer. It's not high pressure. It's free. It's just getting people together, getting them excited for the 24 election. And I will be there with you guys. So good, fun night. Bring a friend. Totally free. Sam can post the link in the comments for me if he's on.
Awesome. By the way, speaking of things we've forgotten about, because I meant to say this last week, we were talking about the homeschool crackdowns, which I don't. We were talking about that tonight, Jamie. If you want to get into that, we can. But
I got grandkids that I can hear them upstairs.
All right, I talked about that with Rep Green last week, but since I missed the opportunity to mention it, people sometimes ask me, who's that guy in the painting behind me? And some people think it's Ron Paul, which I'm like, if that's Ron Paul, that's the worst painting of Ron Paul ever. No. I've heard people say this is some soldier with a pipe. I'm like, no, this is the guy behind me is John Taylor Gatto, who is one of the most influential pioneers of the homeschooling movement in America. If you don't know who that is, look him up. John Taylor Gatto, Gatto. And prepare to have your mind blown. He changed my life when I first came across his articles when I was in 11th grade. So there you go. All right, guys.
Michigan worked really hard to get the rights that they have for homeschool families. And there's no need to, I don't believe in that registry. I don't believe in warrantless entry. I believe that some of our children that are the best educated come from homeschools and come from homeschool families. So I tried it for about a year when I was campaigning. My grandchildren, we were on the 3rd year of Wayne County trying to mask them. And I was said, absolutely not. I'm pulling them and I'm homeschooling them. And I tried campaigning and homeschooling and I thought, whew. Now I know that, most families got this down to a science and they can get everything in. It's unbelievable in 3 hours, and they can spend the rest of the day doing more beneficial things. But long story short, after I was elected, we chose to send them to a parochial school where they have small classroom sizes. In our situation, losing our daughter and raising our grandchildren, those small classrooms make a difference for those kids because my grandchildren are thriving. They are doing so well and so good to have just lost their mother 2 short years ago. I can't believe that our family is as blessed as it is.
There you go. And Sam Ditsazy posts Wine Wednesday, March 27th, 6:30 to 9, Flat Rock Historic Hotel behind the library, 2546 Gibraltar Road, Flat Rock, Michigan, 48134. Delegates for Trump, RSVP and by the way, pause the video if you need to, and you can copy that link there.
Yeah, I'd really love to see you guys there. Like I said, just a lighthearted mixer, getting our base motivated and ready to get out and vote. Too many people sat on their butts, and it's not time to give up.
All right.
Thank you,
Jamie,
Adam.
Wonderful having you on tonight. And again, you and all of our guests, frankly, are welcome back. Just hit me up anytime if you got something you want to talk about. As always, guys, thank you for tuning in. Thanks for all you do for liberty. We will have more streams coming up during the week. Until then, as always, peace.